The War Council chamber floated in the empty space between stars. A massive structure built from materials that could withstand the death of suns. Inside, 12 figures sat around a table made of crystallized time itself. These were the strategic lords of the Crithian Dominion, and they had not gathered for casual discussion. They gathered to choose their next prey. Lord Commander Thask stood at the head of the table. His form was covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. In his 4 hands, he held a data crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The crystal contained everything the Dominion had learned about their next target over 5 years of careful observation. "The reconnaissance phase is complete," Thask announced. His voice echoed through the chamber with the weight of authority earned over 800 successful conquests. Sol 3. Designation: Earth. Intelligence assessment is final. He activated the crystal. A holographic projection filled the center of the table, showing a blue and green world spinning slowly in the darkness. Continents and oceans became visible. Cities sparkled like tiny fires across the night side of the planet. To the gathered lords, it looked like every other primitive world they had consumed. Population: approximately 8 billion individual organisms, Thask continued. Technological classification: nuclear age, early space exploration capability. Political structure: fragmented into 195 separate governing bodies. No unified planetary authority. No knowledge of faster-than-light travel. No quantum shielding. No gravitic weapons. No artificial intelligence networks beyond basic computation. One of the other lords leaned forward. Lord Vesic was responsible for invasion logistics, and she had planned the last 200 conquest operations. Her voice carried the tone of someone who had seen this same scenario play out countless times. "Standard 3-wave assault protocol?" she asked. Thask nodded. Affirmative. First wave eliminates orbital capabilities and military command structures. Second wave establishes atmospheric dominance and removes industrial capacity. Third wave implements ground occupation and begins assimilation processing. Conservative estimate: complete control within 23 standard days from initial contact. Another lord spoke up. This was Morok, the Dominion's chief military analyst. Any unusual defensive capabilities? Biological weapons? Exotic radiation? Psionic potential? Negative on all counts, Thask replied. The species shows no evidence of supernatural abilities. Their weapons rely on chemical reactions and fission explosives, primitive kinetic delivery systems. Their fastest spacecraft would require approximately 70,000 years to reach even their nearest neighboring star system. They are, by all measurable standards, helpless. The projection changed, showing footage captured by stealth observation drones. Cities full of humans, going about their daily lives, completely unaware they were being watched. Soldiers conducting training exercises with weapons that looked like toys compared to Crithian plasma cannons. Scientists peering through telescopes, searching for life among the stars, while never suspecting that life had already found them. They fight among themselves constantly, Thask noted, highlighting several ongoing conflicts across the planet. Religious differences, resource disputes, territorial claims, ideological conflicts. In the past century alone, they have engaged in 2 global-scale wars that killed millions of their own kind. They are divided, primitive, and violent. Perfect candidates for assimilation. Lord Vesic studied the data with practiced efficiency. Fleet, composition, recommendation: 3,000 warships should be more than sufficient, Thask said. We will bring the 7th, 9th, and 14th fleets. Overwhelming force to prevent any prolonged resistance. The operation will serve as a training exercise for newly promoted commanders. This drew approving gestures from the assembled lords. The Crithian Dominion had perfected the art of conquest over 3,000 years. They had absorbed 847 star systems, each containing at least one intelligent species. Some of those species had fought. Most had surrendered once they understood the futility of resistance. All of them now served the Dominion in one capacity or another. Their cultures erased, their technologies absorbed, their individuality dissolved into the collective machine of empire. Earth would be number 848. Transit time to target? Morak asked. 2 standard years at maximum fleet cruising speed, Thask answered. We depart immediately. By the time we arrive, Sol 3 will have advanced marginally in technological terms, but not enough to present any additional threat. They will still be confined to their single planet, still divided, still weak, the Council voted. It was unanimous, as it always was. The Crithian Dominion operated with perfect efficiency. Debate was minimal because the outcome was always certain. They had never lost. They could not lose. Their technology was superior. Their strategy was proven. And their resolve was absolute. As the meeting concluded and the lords departed to prepare their fleets, the holographic image of Earth continued to spin slowly in the empty chamber. Unaware, unprepared, doomed. Across the galaxy, in a hidden sector of space protected by technology the Crithians had not yet discovered, another meeting was taking place. The Galactic Assembly had no grand chamber or impressive architecture. They met in virtual space, their consciousnesses linked across vast distances through quantum entanglement networks. 23 species participated in the assembly, and each of them had one thing in common. They had survived encounters with the Crithian Dominion by hiding, running, or surrendering valuable but ultimately expendable colony worlds. The assembly had been watching the Dominion for centuries, gathering intelligence, searching for weaknesses, and hoping for an opportunity that never came. They were not warriors. They were survivors. Ambassador Quelix of the Tarn Collective initiated the emergency session. Her species had lost 3 colony worlds to Crithian expansion 200 years ago. The memory still burned in their cultural consciousness like an open wound. The Dominion has marked a new target, Quelix announced to the assembled representatives. Stellar designation, Sol 3. Species designation, humanity. Intelligence gathering has been completed. The invasion fleet departs today. A wave of resignation passed through the virtual gathering. They had witnessed this pattern many times before. A new species would be identified, studied, and consumed. The galaxy grew smaller with each conquest. Do we have reconnaissance data on this species? Asked Representative Vone of the Methodical Union. His people had survived by offering the Dominion advanced mathematical algorithms in exchange for their homeworld's safety. It was a deal that had saved them, but had cost them their honor. Quelix transmitted the available data. The assembly reviewed information about Earth, its location, its people, its technology, its culture. What they saw was distressingly familiar. Another young species on the verge of space exploration, completely ignorant of the dangers lurking among the stars. They have no defense, observed Counselor Marax of the Silent Reaches. Her species communicated through bioluminescent patterns, which the translation network converted to standard galactic language. No shields, no energy weapons, no starships worthy of the name. They will fall in weeks, if not days. Should we send warning? This question came from an unexpected source. High Scholar Drennick of the Preservation Enclave. His species believed in documenting extinct civilizations, preserving their art and culture, even when the species themselves could not be saved. The virtual space fell into heavy silence. This question arose every time the Dominion marked a new target, and the answer was always the same. What purpose would warning serve? Quelix asked gently. We cannot send military aid. The Dominion's fleets would trace the transmission back to our refuge worlds. We would only die alongside humanity, achieving nothing. We could tell them to run, Drennick insisted. They have primitive spacecraft. They could send colony ships, preserve some portion of their species. Ambassador Vone shook his holographic head. They have no faster-than-light capability. Any colony ship they launched would take tens of thousands of years to reach a habitable world. The Dominion would track them down long before they arrived. We would only give them false hope. Then, we do nothing? Drennick's bioluminescent pattern flickered with anguish. We simply watch another species die? We survive, Quelix said firmly. That is what we do. We survive so that someday, somehow, we might find a way to stop the Dominion. Sacrificing ourselves and achieving nothing helps no one. Humanity's fate was sealed the moment they evolved intelligence in Dominion space. The Assembly voted. 22 representatives agreed to monitor the situation, but take no direct action. Only High Scholar Drennick dissented, though even he acknowledged the logic of the decision. As the session ended and the representatives disconnected from the quantum network, each of them carried the same heavy burden. They were the witness to genocide, the scribes who recorded extinction events, the survivors who lived with the knowledge that their survival came at the cost of their courage. On Earth, none of this was known. Humans continued their daily lives, their petty conflicts, their small triumphs, and ordinary disasters. They looked up at the stars with wonder and hope, never suspecting that the universe was far more hostile than their wildest nightmares. In a small laboratory at the SETI Institute in California, Dr. Sarah Chen reviewed the latest batch of radio telescope data. She had spent 15 years searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. Like thousands of researchers before her, she had found nothing but cosmic static and natural phenomena. She had no way of knowing that intelligence had already found Earth. The Crithian invasion fleet assembled at the rally point beyond the rim of Dominion space. 3,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet's biosphere. The fleet stretched across millions of kilometers, a mobile constellation of death arranged in perfect military formation. Lord Commander Thask stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Triumph, reviewing the final preparation reports. Every system checked out perfectly. Every crew member was at peak readiness. Every weapon was calibrated and loaded. All fleets report ready for transit, his second-in-command reported. Thask nodded. Engage faster than light drives. Set course for Sol 3. Standard approach protocol. We will arrive in 2 years, conquer in 23 days, and return home victorious, just as we always have. The fleet vanished from normal space, slipping into the quantum foam that allowed for faster-than-light travel. Behind them, they left nothing but empty space. Ahead of them, 8 billion humans lived and loved, and fought and dreamed. Completely unaware that their entire species had just been marked for extinction, the clock had started counting down. 18 months passed. On Earth, seasons changed, governments rose and fell, wars continued, and peace treaties were signed. Humanity remained blissfully ignorant of the fleet, traveling toward them through the darkness between stars. Dr. Sarah Chen had almost given up hope of ever detecting anything meaningful. 15 years of analyzing cosmic noise had worn down even her considerable optimism. She had started updating her resume, considering a transition to teaching or private industry. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence was a noble pursuit, but it did not pay well, and the lack of results made funding increasingly difficult to secure. On a Tuesday morning in March, everything changed. Sarah was reviewing data from the radio telescope array when something caught her attention. It was not the usual pattern of cosmic background radiation or pulsar signals. This was different, structured, deliberate, impossible. The signal had bypassed every conventional physics model she understood. It had not traveled at light speed. Instead, it had somehow appeared simultaneously across multiple receiving stations, separated by thousands of kilometers. That should have been impossible. Information could not travel faster than light. Einstein had proven that over a century ago. Yet here was evidence that suggested otherwise. Sarah ran the data through every verification protocol available. She checked for equipment malfunction, software errors, interference from terrestrial sources, natural phenomena that might create similar patterns. Everything came back negative. The signal was real, artificial, and had traveled faster than light. Her hands shook as she began decoding the transmission. The signal contained multiple layers of information. The first layer was a mathematical primer, establishing basic concepts of arithmetic and geometry to prove intelligence behind the transmission. The second layer provided translation protocols, mapping the sender's language structure to human linguistic patterns. The third layer contained the actual message. As Sarah decoded it, her blood turned cold. The message began with a greeting, then immediately delivered information that shattered every assumption humanity held about its place in the universe. Intelligent life was not rare. It was common. There were thousands of spacefaring civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Earth was not alone, had never been alone. And that was the worst news possible, because one of those civilizations was coming to destroy them. The transmission explained the Crithian dominion in clinical detail, their history of conquest spanning 3 millennia, their technological superiority over nearly every known species, their strategic doctrine of overwhelming force, followed by complete assimilation, their perfect record of 847 successful invasions. Earth was target number 848. The message provided specifics that made Sarah's stomach turn. The invasion fleet had departed 18 months ago. It consisted of 3,000 warships. It would arrive in approximately 6 months. Humanity's military technology would be utterly useless against weapons that could crack planets. The invasion would be swift, brutal, and successful. But the message did not end there. The sender identified itself as High Scholar Drennick of the Preservation Enclave, a member of the Galactic Assembly. Drennick admitted that his people would not send help. They were too frightened of Crithian retaliation. But he could not remain silent while another species faced extinction. So he sent this warning, transmitted through experimental faster-than-light communication technology that had taken his people centuries to develop. The message included technical data about Crithian weapon systems, ship configurations, known tactical patterns, and strategic doctrine. It was intelligence that might give humanity a fighting chance, however slim. Drennick had included everything he could access, without triggering security protocols that might alert the Dominion to his betrayal. The message ended with an apology and a gift. The apology was for humanity's impending fate. The gift was the transmission technology itself, embedded in the signal's carrier wave. If human scientists could reverse engineer it, they might develop faster-than-light communication. It would not save them from the invasion, but at least they would not die in ignorance. Sarah sat in her laboratory chair for 30 minutes, unable to move. Her mind struggled to process what she had discovered. The greatest achievement in human history and the worst news imaginable had arrived in the same transmission. She saved every byte of data to multiple secure locations. Then she made the phone call that would change everything. Within hours, military intelligence officers arrived at the SETI Institute. Within days, the transmission had been verified by the world's leading scientists. Within weeks, heads of state were briefed on the situation. The initial reaction was predictable: denial. Many governments dismissed the transmission as an elaborate hoax, despite the verifiable, faster-than-light nature of the signal itself. Some claimed it was a psychological operation by rival nations. Others suggested mass delusion or equipment failure. Then Drennick's message proved itself. The transmission had included predictions of stellar phenomena that would occur in the following weeks. Specific asteroids entering specific orbits on specific dates. A solar flare of precise intensity at a precise time. The gamma ray burst from a supernova in a distant galaxy, visible on a specific day. Every prediction came true with perfect accuracy. The evidence became undeniable. The transmission was real. The threat was real. The invasion fleet was real. And getting closer every day. Panic spread across the globe like wildfire. The United Nations convened an emergency session. Every member nation sent representatives. For once, political differences and historical conflicts seemed trivial compared to the existential threat bearing down on them. Humanity stood at the edge of extinction, and all the old grievances suddenly felt irrelevant. But unity of purpose did not immediately translate to unity of action. The Emergency Defense Council was formed, bringing together the world's top military strategists, scientists, engineers, and political leaders. Their task was simple to state and impossible to execute: find a way to defend Earth against an invasion force that had never lost a battle in 3,000 years. General James Morrison, a veteran of multiple conflicts and now chair of the Defense Council, stood before the assembly to present the military assessment. His face was grim as he delivered the analysis that everyone already knew but no one wanted to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be direct. Based on the intelligence provided in the transmission, our chances of military victory are effectively zero, Morrison said. The Crithian Dominion possesses technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. Their ships can travel faster than light. Their weapons can destroy cities from orbit. Their shields can deflect anything we can throw at them. Our most powerful nuclear weapons would be like firecrackers against their armor. He pulled up tactical simulations that the Defense Council had run. Every scenario ended the same way: total human defeat within days of first contact. We have attempted to model potential defensive strategies using every tactic in human military history: guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, nuclear deterrence, mutually assured destruction. None of these concepts translate to our situation. The Dominion is not interested in occupying Earth in a way that requires ground forces we can resist. They will simply destroy our ability to fight from orbit, then land when we are helpless. A representative from China spoke up. What about the technology included in the transmission? The faster-than-light communication? Can we weaponize it? Dr. Yuki Tanaka, one of the world's leading theoretical physicists, answered that question. She had been working with an international team to reverse engineer the FTL technology. We have made progress understanding the principles, Dr. Tanaka explained. But understanding is not the same as implementation. The technology requires materials and energy manipulation techniques we have barely theorized, let alone mastered. With unlimited resources and time, we might develop working FTL communication in 20 or 30 years. We have 6 months. What about conventional space defense? Asked a Russian general. Satellites equipped with nuclear weapons. Orbital platforms. Can we at least make them pay for victory? General Morrison shook his head. Our current space infrastructure consists of research stations, communication satellites, and surveillance equipment. None of it was designed for combat. We can attempt to weaponize some satellites, but the Crithians will detect and destroy them immediately upon arrival. They have 3,000 warships. We have 0. Despair settled over the council like a heavy fog. Dr. Sarah Chen had been invited to the session as the discoverer of the transmission. She had remained silent through most of the discussion, listening to humanity's best and brightest confirm what she already knew. They were doomed, but something was bothering her. Some detail from Drennick's message that she could not quite articulate. She raised her hand. General Morrison nodded to her. I want to go back to the intelligence data, Sarah said. Drennick included detailed information about Crithian tactics and strategy. Has anyone analyzed why he included those specific details? What do you mean? Morrison asked. Sarah pulled up the relevant sections of the transmission on the main display. Look at what he emphasized. Ship formations. Standard invasion protocols. Tactical patterns. Known doctrine. He did not just tell us we are going to lose. He told us exactly how the Crithians fight. Dr. Tanaka leaned forward, interest sparking in her eyes. You think he included that for a reason beyond simple documentation? The message says the Crithian Dominion has conquered 847 species using the same strategic approach, Sarah continued. That is 847 victories with the same playbook. What does that tell us? No. A young military analyst named Captain David Park spoke up. In military terms, That means they have no reason to innovate. Why change tactics when you are undefeated? Why? Exactly, Sarah said. They have become predictable. They do not expect resistance to adapt because resistance has never succeeded. Every species they have conquered either surrendered immediately or fought using conventional defensive strategies that the Crithians could easily counter. General Morrison crossed his arms, skeptical but listening. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting we look at this differently, Sarah said. We cannot win a conventional military engagement. But what if we do not fight conventionally? What if we do things no other species has tried simply because those things seemed too desperate, too costly, or too insane? The room fell silent as people processed this idea. Dr. Tanaka was the first to respond. You are talking about asymmetric warfare taken to an extreme level. Tactics that accept massive losses in exchange for inflicting any damage at all. I am talking about making them regret marking us as a target, Sarah said quietly. We cannot win. But maybe we can make victory expensive enough that they think twice before attacking the next species. A Middle Eastern diplomat named Ambassador Rashid spoke with careful words. That is a suicide strategy. You are suggesting we design our defense around the assumption we will lose but hurt them in the process. Yes, Sarah said simply. Because the alternative is hoping for a miracle that will not come. General Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. We need to think like a species with nothing to lose. Because that is exactly what we are. The Defense Council adjourned with new purpose. They could not save Earth. But perhaps they could teach the Crithian Dominion that some prey had teeth. In the weeks that followed, a new approach began to take shape. Scientists examined the Crithian tactical data. Looking for vulnerabilities, engineers started designing weapons that prioritized damage over survival. Military strategists began planning operations that assumed total loss in exchange for any strategic effect. Humanity had 6 months to prepare for a battle they could not win, but they would make damn sure it was a battle the Crithians would never forget. The world should have ended in chaos. When faced with extinction, civilizations throughout history had collapsed into panic, looting, violence, and despair. The United Nations expected riots. Governments prepared for social breakdown. Military forces positioned themselves to maintain order when the public learned the truth. But something strange happened instead. The information leaked, as secrets always do. A classified document here. A worried scientist there. A journalist who connected the dots. Within 3 weeks of the Emergency Defense Council's formation, rumors of an alien invasion spread across the internet like wildfire. Governments could not contain it. They stopped trying. The official announcement came on a Monday morning. Every major network broadcast simultaneously as the Secretary General of the United Nations explained humanity's situation. They were not alone in the universe. Intelligent life existed, and it was coming to kill them in approximately 5 months. The expected panic did arrive, but it lasted only about 48 hours. Then, something in the human spirit shifted. People looked at the countdown to invasion and made a collective decision that surprised even the psychologists and sociologists studying mass behavior. They decided to fight, not in an organized, top-down military fashion. That was happening too, as governments mobilized their armed forces and space agencies. But something else emerged from the grassroots level, something chaotic and beautiful and utterly insane. Humanity weaponized its creativity. In a garage in Ohio, a 17-year-old named Marcus Webb and his friends started a project they called Orbital Denial System. Using scrapped satellite parts purchased from aerospace surplus stores, they built crude kinetic impactors designed to be launched into Earth orbit on amateur rockets. The physics were simple. Objects in orbit moved at tremendous speeds. Even small debris could cause catastrophic damage. If the Crithians wanted orbital superiority, humanity would turn Earth's orbit into a minefield. The United Nations Space Defense Initiative heard about the project and tried to shut it down for safety reasons. Then, an engineer reviewed Marcus's designs and realized they might actually work. Within a week, The garage project had received official funding and technical support. Within 2 weeks, similar projects sprouted up in 30 countries. In Finland, an engineer named Aila Virtanen published a paper titled Weaponizing Planetary Magnetosphere. Her theory suggested that Earth's Van Allen radiation belts could be artificially intensified and manipulated using a network of orbital satellites. The concentrated radiation would not stop the Crythian fleet, but it might disrupt their sensors and communications. The paper got laughed at by establishment scientists. It got implemented by desperate military planners who no longer cared about conventional wisdom. In Australia, a collective of sailors, engineers, and software developers began constructing solar sail kamikaze drones. The concept was beautifully simple. Use massive reflective sails to accelerate small spacecraft to incredible velocities using only solar radiation pressure. Then, crash them into Crythian ships. Each drone cost less than a luxury car to build. They started producing them by the hundreds. Corporations that normally competed for market share started sharing research. Defense contractors opened their patent portfolios to anyone who could use them. Rival nations exchanged military technology freely. The usual rules of competition, secrecy, and profit motive dissolved in the face of species-level extinction. But the most interesting phenomenon happened online. Internet forums exploded with tactical discussions that mixed military doctrine, science fiction, speculation, video game strategies, and historical analysis. People with no formal military training debated Crythian vulnerabilities identified in Drennick's intelligence data. Gamers who had spent thousands of hours playing space combat simulators proposed fleet engagement tactics. Science fiction authors contributed ideas from their stories. Military historians pointed to historical examples of weaker forces defeating superior enemies through unconventional tactics. The Defense Council initially dismissed these online communities as unhelpful noise. Then, a marine biologist in Japan posted a detailed analysis of Crythian ship formations based on Drennick's data, identifying a weakness in their standard approach pattern that professional military analysts had missed. The biologist's background in studying fish schooling behavior gave her a unique perspective on fleet movement dynamics. General Morrison personally called her and asked her to join the official analysis team. After that, the Defense Council started actively monitoring online discussions. Some of the best tactical insights came from unexpected sources. A middle school teacher in Brazil, a retired plumber in Scotland, a college student in South Korea. Intelligence and creativity were not limited by credentials or formal education. Humanity was not speaking with one voice. It was screaming with millions of voices, each contributing pieces to an impossible puzzle. And slowly, those pieces started forming something that resembled a strategy. The official military preparations were equally unconventional. Every nation with space capability began launching weapons platforms, but none of them followed traditional military logic. There were no battleships or fortifications designed to last. Everything was designed to die while inflicting maximum damage. The Chinese Space Agency launched clusters of one-shot missile platforms. Each satellite carried a single, nuclear-tipped rocket and nothing else. No armor, no maneuvering capability, no communications beyond a simple trigger signal. They would float dormant in orbit until the Crythian fleet arrived. Then fire once and die. They were cheap, mass-produced, and difficult to detect until they activated. The United States military developed kinetic missile swarms based on drone warfare technology. Thousands of small, independently targeting projectiles that could coordinate attacks using simple algorithms. Each individual missile was harmless against Crythian armor, but thousands hitting simultaneously might overwhelm point defense systems through sheer numbers. Russia contributed a terrifying concept called nuclear-pumped lasers. Use a nuclear explosion to generate a single, incredibly powerful laser pulse in the fraction of a second before the bomb vaporized the laser apparatus. It was a one-shot weapon that destroyed itself in the act of firing, but the energy output would be immense. They started building them by the dozens. The European Space Agency focused on stealth technology. If humanity's weapons could not survive direct engagement, maybe they could avoid detection until the moment of attack. They developed satellites, coated in radar-absorbing materials, painted to match the cosmic background radiation, broadcasting no signals until triggered. Hidden mines waiting in the dark. India's space program contributed navigation disruptors, devices designed to flood the local space environment with false signals, corrupting GPS-equivalent systems the Krithians might use. Would it work against alien technology? Nobody knew. But it was worth trying. Japan provided miniaturized kamikaze spacecraft, drawing on their cultural history while adding cutting-edge robotics. Small, fast, smart, and completely expendable. Each one carried just enough fuel to intercept a Krithian ship and just enough explosive to hopefully damage something important. Private space companies contributed whatever they could. SpaceX retooled production lines to manufacture weapons platforms. Blue Origin designed launch vehicles optimized for rapid deployment of military payloads. Smaller companies that had been developing asteroid mining technology repurposed their equipment for warfare. The scale of production was staggering. Every industrial economy on Earth shifted toward a single goal: make the Krithians bleed. But perhaps the strangest developments came from the civilian research sector. Dr. Tanaka's team made a breakthrough in understanding the faster-than-light transmission technology. They could not build FTL engines, but they managed to create a crude FTL communication pulse. It could only send a simple signal, required enormous amounts of power, and destroyed the transmission equipment in the process. But it worked. Someone immediately suggested using it as a weapon. If you could send information faster than light, could you send energy? Could you create a faster-than-light explosion? The physics were unclear, but people started experimenting. A team at MIT developed what they called quantum entanglement bombs. The theory was based on observer effects in quantum mechanics. If you could create entangled particles and separate them, then force one particle into a specific state, the other particle would instantly mirror that state, regardless of distance. Could you use that effect to bypass shields? To create explosions inside enemy ships? Nobody knew if it would work. But they built prototypes anyway. A Canadian research group started working on biological warfare, then stopped when they realized how horrific that path could become. Then someone pointed out that the Krithians breathed different atmospheric gas mixtures than humans, according to Drennick's intelligence data. Could you create an atmospheric weapon that was harmless to humans but toxic to Krithians? The moral implications were debated for about 6 hours before desperate pragmatism won. They started developing it. Everywhere, people were trying anything that might work. Lasers, railguns, biological agents, chemical weapons, nuclear explosives, kinetic impactors, electromagnetic pulses, sonic weapons, computer viruses designed to infect alien systems, nanomachines, dirty bombs, clean bombs, smart bombs, dumb bombs launched by the millions. Traditional military thinking would have called it chaos. No unified command structure, no consistent strategy, no standardization of equipment or tactics. Every nation, every organization, every garage inventor was pursuing different approaches based on different assumptions. But that chaos was the point. The Krithian Dominion had conquered 847 species using the same strategic playbook. They expected defensive patterns they could counter. They expected military hierarchy they could decapitate. They expected rational actors making rational decisions about survival. Humanity gave them chaos instead. General Morrison stood in the Defense Council Command Center, watching data feeds from construction projects around the world. Thousands of weapons platforms being built, millions of individual components being manufactured, billions of people contributing in ways large and small. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside him, reviewing the latest tactical analysis. "This should not work," Morrison said quietly. "Everything we are doing violates basic military doctrine. We have no central coordination, no standardized equipment, No unified command structure. It is a mess. Yes. Sarah agreed. But the Crithians have never fought a mess before. They have fought organized resistance, professional militaries, rational opponents who followed logical strategic principles. We are giving them something they have never encountered. A species too stupid to know when we are beaten? Sarah smiled grimly. A species too stubborn to care. The countdown continued. 4 months. Until invasion. 3 months. 2 months. Humanity kept building, kept innovating, kept preparing. The Galactic Assembly monitored Earth's preparations with growing confusion. This was not how prey species behaved. They were supposed to panic, fragment, beg for mercy, or attempt futile diplomatic solutions. They were not supposed to turn their entire civilization into a weapons factory. Ambassador Quelix reviewed the intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans were preparing tactics that no civilized species would consider. Kamikaze attacks. Weapons designed to destroy themselves. Strategies that assumed total loss in exchange for inflicting any damage at all. They are going to get themselves killed, Quelix said to her advisors. They were going to get killed anyway, one advisor replied. At least this way. They choose how they die. On Earth, people went about their daily lives with strange normalcy. Yes, an alien invasion was coming. Yes, they were probably all going to die, but there were still jobs to do, children to raise, bills to pay, and weapons to build. Humanity had looked at extinction and responded not with surrender but with spite. The universe was about to learn what that meant. 6 months before the Crithian fleet would arrive at Earth, the United Nations Defense Council made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. They decided to send a message, not a plea for mercy, not a diplomatic overture seeking peaceful resolution, not a surrender offer. They decided to send a transmission that would announce to the galaxy exactly what humanity had become in the 5 months since learning of their impending extinction. General Morrison presented the proposal to the assembled world leaders in a closed session. We have spent 5 months preparing weapons we know probably will not be enough, Morrison said. We have turned our entire civilization into a military production line. We have created tactics and strategies that violate every conventional military doctrine. And we have done all of this, knowing we will likely lose. He paused, letting that reality sink in once more. But there is value in making our preparations known. The Crithian Dominion expects easy prey. Every species they have conquered either surrendered immediately or fought predictably. We have an opportunity to change their expectations, to make them hesitate, to make them uncertain. The president of Brazil spoke up. You want to broadcast our defensive capabilities to an enemy that can monitor our transmissions? That violates basic operational security. Under normal circumstances, yes, Morrison agreed. But these are not normal circumstances. The Crithians already know our technological level. They already know we cannot match them in direct combat. What they do not know is that we have spent 5 months analyzing their tactical patterns and designing specific countermeasures. What they do not know is that we are willing to sacrifice everything to hurt them. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward to explain the technical aspects. We have reverse-engineered the faster-than-light communication technology from Drennick's original warning. We can send a transmission that will reach not just the Crithian fleet but monitoring stations across the galaxy. The Galactic Assembly will receive it. Every species watching this situation will receive it. We can send one message that changes the entire context of this invasion. What would this message contain? Asked the Chinese premier. Sarah pulled up the proposed transmission content on the main display. 3 primary components. First, a comprehensive overview of human military history. Not propaganda, but factual documentation of our capacity for warfare. How we have fought each other for our entire recorded history. How we have developed increasingly sophisticated methods of killing. How we have adapted tactics in response to new threats. We show them that warfare is not a theoretical exercise for us. It is our entire history. She advanced to the next section. Second, we demonstrate our new weapon systems. Not all of them, but enough to prove we are not helpless. We show them the kinetic impactor swarms, the nuclear-pumped lasers, the FTL communication pulses we have weaponized, the quantum entanglement devices. We prove that 5 months of desperate innovation has produced results. The final section appeared. Third, and most importantly, we provide a detailed tactical analysis of their invasion doctrine. We list the 47 critical vulnerabilities we have identified in their standard approach. We explain exactly how we plan to exploit each vulnerability. We tell them precisely what we are going to do to hurt them. Silence filled the council chamber. Finally, the British Prime Minister spoke. You want to challenge them. You want to make this personal. Yes, Sarah said simply. Because psychological warfare is one of the few weapons we have that might actually affect them. The Crithian Dominion has never lost. They have 3,000 years of unbroken victory. That creates arrogance. That creates complacency. We want to crack that certainty. General Morrison added his perspective. Every tactical analysis we have run suggests we cannot win a military victory. But we might achieve a strategic victory by changing the cost calculation. If we make this invasion expensive enough, painful enough, unexpected enough, we might make them think twice about their next target. We might save the species that comes after us. The Russian president leaned back in his chair, considering. This is a suicide note that doubles as a threat. We announce our own death, while promising to take as many of them with us as possible. Exactly, Morrison confirmed. The vote was taken. It was not unanimous, but it passed with clear majority. Humanity would send its message to the galaxy. The next 2 weeks involved intense preparation. Scientists compiled the Human Military History Database, spanning from ancient warfare to modern conflicts. Engineers documented the new weapons systems. Military analysts finalized the tactical analysis of Crithian vulnerabilities. Linguists and communications specialists packaged everything in formats that could be understood by any species with advanced technology. Dr. Tanaka and her team prepared the FTL transmission equipment. It would require the combined power output of 3 nuclear reactors to send a signal powerful enough to reach across the galaxy. The transmission equipment would destroy itself in the process, but that was acceptable. They only needed to send one message. On a Tuesday morning, 6 months before the Crithian invasion, humanity broadcast its transmission to the galaxy. The message began simply, to the Crithian Dominion. We are humanity of Earth. Sol 3. We have received notification of your approach. We understand you intend to conquer our world. We have reviewed your tactical history and strategic doctrine. We have analyzed your methods and studied your patterns. We offer no surrender. We request no mercy. Instead, we offer you this information so you can make an informed decision about whether this conquest will be worth the cost. Then came the data. The first section detailed human military history in stark, unflinching terms. The Bronze Age collapse, the Roman conquests, the Mongol invasions, the World Wars, the Cold War nuclear standoff, thousands of years of increasingly sophisticated violence, tactical innovations driven by desperate necessity, strategic thinking, refined through countless conflicts. The transmission included battle footage. Ancient battles fought with swords and shields. Medieval sieges. Modern warfare with tanks and aircraft. Nuclear explosions demonstrating the weapons humanity had developed to kill itself. It was not propaganda glorifying war. It was documentation of capacity. Humanity showing that violence was not a foreign concept to them, but an integral part of their evolutionary history. The second section demonstrated the weapons systems developed in the 5 months since Drennick's warning. Video footage of test firings. Kinetic impactors striking targets at orbital velocities. Nuclear-pumped lasers vaporizing asteroid fragments. kamikaze drones executing precision intercepts, quantum entanglement devices producing effects that human scientists barely understood but had weaponized anyway. The transmission was careful not to reveal exact numbers or deployment locations, but it showed capability. It proved that humanity had not spent 5 months in denial or despair. They had spent it, weaponizing every resource available. The third section was the most significant. A detailed analysis of Krithian tactical doctrine, based on Drennick's intelligence data and humanity's own military expertise. The transmission identified 47 specific vulnerabilities in the standard Krithian invasion protocol. Some were obvious. Their fleet formations assumed no enemy would attempt kamikaze attacks, creating gaps that suicide weapons could exploit. Some were subtle. Their communication protocols showed patterns that suggested centralized command structures vulnerable to decapitation strikes. For each vulnerability, the transmission explained exactly how humanity intended to exploit it. Kinetic impactor swarms targeting formation gaps. Nuclear-pumped lasers timed to fire during approach maneuvers when Krithian shields would be reconfigured for atmospheric entry. Communications jammers, designed to disrupt their command and control networks. Biological weapons tailored to their atmospheric requirements. The transmission did not hide its strategy. It announced it openly. Every tactic humanity planned to use was laid out in clear detail. Then came the conclusion. We have calculated probable outcomes. We estimate 97% probability of human military defeat. We estimate 5 to 8% of our weapons systems will successfully engage your fleet before being destroyed. We estimate you will achieve your tactical objectives within 30 days of arrival. However, we also estimate casualty rates. Based on our analysis and our weapons deployment, we calculate you will lose between 300 and 600 warships before achieving victory. That represents 10 to 20% of your invasion fleet. Those ships will not be damaged. They will be destroyed. Your crews will not be captured. They will be killed. We further estimate that our resistance will require you to adjust your standard invasion protocol, revealing tactical innovations to the other species watching this engagement. The intelligence value of observing how you adapt to unexpected resistance may prove useful to future targets. Finally, we guarantee that even if you achieve complete military victory, the cost will be significant enough that your next invasion will face enemies who have learned from our example. We cannot save ourselves, but we can ensure that our death serves as a tactical manual for your future enemies. The transmission ended with a simple statement. We are prepared to lose. We have accepted our extinction. We will die fighting. Come. Test your theories of supremacy against a species that has engaged in warfare for its entire existence. We invite you to learn what that costs. The message was sent simultaneously to the Krithian fleet, the Galactic Assembly, and broadcasted across all frequencies in every direction. Anyone in the galaxy with the technology to detect it would receive humanity's challenge. On Earth, people watched the transmission broadcast on every network. They heard their entire species announce its own probable death, while simultaneously threatening the largest military empire in the galaxy. Some people cried, some people cheered, some people simply nodded in grim satisfaction. Humanity had looked at extinction and responded with defiance. In the depths of space, aboard the flagship Inevitable Triumph, Lord Commander Thask received the transmission. He listened to it once, then played it again for his senior officers. The initial reaction was dismissive laughter. A primitive species trying to sound threatening. Desperate bravado from prey facing inevitable doom. The Strategic Council had seen this pattern before in other conquered species. Threats meant nothing when backed by insufficient force, but as the intelligence officers analyzed the transmission in detail, the laughter faded. The humans had identified real vulnerabilities in Krithian tactical doctrine. Not all of them, and some of the analysis was flawed, but enough was accurate to be concerning. They had developed weapons specifically designed to exploit those vulnerabilities. The casualty estimates were probably exaggerated, but they were not completely fantastical. Most concerning was the psychological aspect. This species was announcing its intention to inflict maximum casualties while accepting total loss. That was not rational behavior. That was not how conquered species acted. Lord Morak, the chief military analyst, prepared a supplementary report for the Strategic Council. Recommendation: revise invasion protocol. Standard three-wave assault assumes minimal resistance and tactical surprise. Neither assumption appears valid. Recommend expanded preliminary bombardment and increased fleet spacing to counter kinetic impactor threat. Lord Commander Thask read the report with growing irritation. They had never needed to revise protocol before. Every species fell to the standard approach. Why should this primitive species be different? But the numbers did not lie. If even half of humanity's claimed weapons systems worked as described, casualties would exceed anything the Dominion had experienced in 3,000 years. Across the galaxy, other species received the transmission with shocked disbelief. In the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Quelix listened to humanity's message and felt something she had not experienced in 200 years. Hope. Not hope that humanity would survive. That still seemed impossible. But hope that perhaps the Crithian Dominion's era of unchallenged supremacy might be ending. They are insane, one ambassador commented. They are announcing tactics that assume their own annihilation. They are not insane, Quelix replied quietly. They are free. They have accepted the worst possible outcome, which means they have nothing left to fear. That makes them the most dangerous kind of opponent. Representative Vone of the Methodical Union reviewed the tactical analysis humanity had provided. His people were mathematicians, logicians, strategic thinkers. They recognized quality analysis when they saw it. The vulnerabilities they identified are real, Vone said. Some we knew about. Some we had theorized. Some are new insights. If we had possessed this analysis 200 years ago, he trailed off. It was too late for his people, but perhaps not too late for others. The transmission rippled across the galaxy, reaching species that had never heard of Earth or humanity. Some dismissed it as the desperate threat of a doomed species. Some studied it carefully, analyzing the tactical insights. Some began wondering if the Crithian Dominion was truly invincible, or simply unchallenged. On Earth, humanity continued preparations. The transmission had been sent. The challenge had been issued. Now, there was only the waiting and the work. 5 months until invasion. 4 months. 3 months. The countdown continued. But now the entire galaxy was watching. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Crithian Dominion was uncertain. The transmission changed everything. Though not in ways anyone had predicted. For the Crithian Dominion, humanity's broadcast created a problem that 3,000 years of unbroken conquest had not prepared them to face. It was not a military problem, at least not directly. The Strategic Council remained confident they could destroy Earth's defenses. The problem was political, psychological, and strategic in ways that transcended any single battle. Lord Commander Thask convened an emergency session of the Strategic Council 3 months before the fleet was scheduled to arrive at Earth. The lords gathered in their command chamber, but the usual confidence was absent. For the first time in recorded Crithian history, they were discussing whether to abort an invasion. The situation is unprecedented, Thask began. Target species Sol 3 has not only prepared military resistance, but has broadcast their defensive strategies across the entire galaxy. Our intelligence confirms that at least 47 other spacefaring civilizations have received and analyzed the transmission. Lord Vesic pulled up casualty projections on the main display. The numbers had been revised 3 times since the human transmission. Revised estimates suggest we will lose between 400 and 700 warships achieving victory. That represents 13 to 23% of the invasion fleet. Casualties among crew personnel estimated at 85,000 to 150,000 individuals. The numbers hung in the virtual air like a death sentence. Those casualties are acceptable, Lord Morak insisted. We have suffered losses before. What matters is victory, and victory remains certain. The casualties are militarily acceptable. Thask agreed. But politically catastrophic. Consider the implications. We have conquered 847 species over 3 millennia with minimal losses. Our subject species accept dominion rule because they believe resistance is futile. What happens when they learn that a primitive species inflicted the highest casualties in our history? Silence answered him. Lord Vesic continued the analysis. Intelligence reports indicate rebellious sentiment increasing across 14 occupied worlds. Nothing active yet, but monitoring shows increased private communications discussing the human transmission. They are analyzing the tactical vulnerabilities humanity identified. They are studying human weapons designs. They are learning. Then we destroy Earth quickly and thoroughly, another lord argued. Demonstrate that resistance, no matter how fierce, ultimately fails. At what cost? Thask challenged. Yes, we can conquer Earth, but they have already achieved a strategic victory. They have shown the galaxy that the Crithian dominion can be hurt. They have provided a tactical manual for resisting our invasion protocols. They have transformed themselves from unknown primitives into a symbol of defiance that other species will remember for centuries. Lord Morak leaned forward, his form tense with barely controlled anger. Are you suggesting we withdraw? That the mighty Crithian dominion retreats from a species armed with primitive weapons and suicidal tactics? I am suggesting we consider the precedent we are setting, Thask replied carefully. If we proceed with this invasion, we win the battle, but potentially lose the strategic position that has kept our empire stable for 3,000 years. Every species we have conquered accepted their fate because they believed resistance was hopeless. Humanity has broken that narrative. Encrode. 1. The debate continued for hours. Military pride clashed against strategic calculation. Some lords argued that withdrawing would show weakness and encourage rebellion. Others countered that proceeding would demonstrate that any species willing to fight desperately could inflict unacceptable casualties. Finally, they reached an uncomfortable consensus. They would continue toward Earth, but would not initiate the invasion immediately upon arrival. Instead, they would conduct extensive reconnaissance, revise their tactical approach, and attempt one final demand for surrender before engaging. It was not a retreat, but it was the closest the Crithian dominion had come to backing down in 3,000 years. On Earth, intelligence agencies monitoring deep space communications detected the Crithian fleet's deceleration. They were still coming, but more slowly than expected. Analysis suggested the fleet was approaching cautiously rather than at full assault speed. General Morrison studied the data with cautious optimism. They are hesitating. Good, Dr. Sarah Chen replied. Hesitation is the first crack in certainty. But humanity did not slow its preparations. 3 months remained. Every day saw new weapon systems deployed. Every week brought tactical innovations. Every month, the orbital defenses grew denser and more lethal. The world had transformed. Major cities maintained surprisingly normal daily functions, but everyone was part of the war effort in some way. Children in schools studied orbital mechanics. Factories that had produced consumer goods now manufactured weapons components. Sports stadiums had been converted to drone assembly facilities. Universities ran around the clock. Research programs. Humanity had discovered something about itself in those months of preparation. When faced with extinction, they did not collapse into despair or fragment into chaos. They worked. They innovated. They fought. Not because they believed they would win, but because surrender was simply not in their nature. Marcus Webb, the Ohio teenager whose garage project had started the Kinetic Impactor program, was now coordinating a network of 15,000 orbital weapons platforms. His age had stopped mattering when his designs proved effective. The military had offered him a formal position, but he declined. He worked better from his garage with his friends, contributing ideas to the collective defense effort without worrying about rank or protocol. Ayla Virtanen's magnetosphere manipulation system was operational, maintained by an international team of engineers who had set aside national rivalries to focus on planetary defense. The system could not stop the Crithian fleet, but it could disrupt their sensors and communications, creating windows of opportunity for other weapons to strike. The Australian solar sail kamikaze fleet numbered in the thousands, distributed across Earth's orbit in seemingly random patterns that were actually carefully calculated to provide maximum coverage. Each drone was independent, programmed with simple but effective attack algorithms. They would be impossible to stop completely because there were too many to target individually. Around the world, similar projects had reached operational status. Humanity had built an orbital defense network that no single authority controlled. It was distributed, redundant, chaotic, and surprisingly robust. Destroying any one component would not collapse the entire system because there was no entire system, just thousands of independent pieces working toward the same goal. The Galactic Assembly watched these developments with fascination and horror. Humanity was doing things no civilized species would consider. They were arming children. They were weaponizing their planet's natural radiation. They were building weapons designed to explode in suicide attacks. They were violating every standard of civilized warfare. And it was working. Not working in the sense of guaranteed victory, but working in the sense of creating genuine uncertainty. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a species marked for conquest by the Crithian Dominion had made their conquerors hesitate. Ambassador Quelix convened a special session of the Galactic Assembly. The agenda had one item: whether to provide aid to humanity. We cannot defeat the Crithian Dominion militarily, Quelix acknowledged. But we can provide intelligence. We can share our own experiences of Crithian tactics. We can give humanity every advantage possible, short of direct military intervention. The debate was fierce. Some species argued that helping humanity would only provoke Crithian retaliation against the Assembly itself. Others pointed out that humanity had already done what centuries of Assembly diplomacy had failed to achieve. They had made the Dominion uncertain. Representative Vone spoke with unusual passion. My people surrendered without fighting. We gave the Dominion our technology in exchange for our homeworld's survival. We have lived with that shame for 200 years. I will not watch another species face extinction without offering what help we can provide. High Scholar Drennick, who had sent the original warning to Earth, made a final argument. Humanity asked for nothing from us. They received warning of their death and responded by preparing to make that death as costly as possible for their enemy. They have shown more courage than any of our species demonstrated. If we cannot help them, we should at least witness what they do. Their sacrifice may teach us how to reclaim what we lost. The Assembly voted. It was not unanimous, but the majority supported, providing additional intelligence to humanity. Tactical data on Crithian ship vulnerabilities. Updated information on fleet compositions. Details about weapons systems and shield frequencies. Everything the Assembly had gathered over centuries of fearful observation. The data was transmitted to Earth using the FTL communication protocols humanity had reverse-engineered. Dr. Sarah Chen received it and immediately distributed it to research teams worldwide. They are helping us, she said, reviewing the information with wonder. The galaxy is helping us. General Morrison was more pragmatic. They are helping us die with maximum effect, but I will take what we can get. The final month arrived. The Crithian fleet entered the Oort cloud at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors detected them, though visual confirmation was impossible at such distances. Earth's orbital defenses went to maximum alert status. Every weapon system was armed and ready. Every soldier was at their station. Every civilian had their assigned role in the defense plan or evacuation protocol. Humanity held its breath and waited. Aboard the inevitable Triumph, Lord Commander Thask reviewed the latest intelligence on Earth's defenses. The reports were sobering. The humans had deployed far more weapons than expected. The distribution patterns suggested sophisticated tactical thinking. The variety of systems indicated they had prepared counters for multiple Crithian approaches. He could still win. He was certain of that. But the cost kept rising. With every analysis update, Thask made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. He opened a communication channel toward Earth. A diplomatic channel. On Earth, the transmission was received with shock. The Crithian Dominion was hailing them. Not attacking, talking. The transmission was simple. Crithian Dominion to human government. We offer terms. Surrender now. Accept assimilation peacefully. And your species will be preserved. Your culture will be integrated into the Dominion. You will serve but not be exterminated. Resist, and we will reduce your planet to ash. Choose wisely. The message was broadcast worldwide. People heard the choice laid out clearly. Surrender and serve, or fight and die. The United Nations convened an emergency session to formulate a response. The debate lasted exactly 14 minutes. The vote was unanimous. General Morrison composed the reply himself. It was brief. Humanity to Crithian Dominion. We choose extinction over subjugation. We choose death, fighting over life serving. You have traveled 2 years to reach us. You have committed 3,000 warships to our conquest. We acknowledge you will likely succeed, but we guarantee you will pay a price that makes you question whether our world was worth claiming. Come teach us what defeat means. We will show you what it costs. The transmission was sent. Across the galaxy, species monitoring the exchange understood what had just happened. Humanity had rejected the only peaceful option. They had chosen certain death over possible survival. Some species thought them insane. Some thought them heroic. All of them recognized that something fundamental had shifted. The Crithian Dominion had offered mercy, which they had never done before. They had opened negotiations, which they had never needed before. They had shown uncertainty, which they had never felt before. And humanity had rejected them. Lord Commander Thask received the human response and felt something he had not experienced in his centuries of military service. Not fear, exactly, but something close. Recognition that this battle would be different from all the others, that this prey had teeth and was eager to use them. The fleet continued its approach but did not accelerate to attack speed. Thask issued orders to maintain defensive formations and maximize shield strength. He authorized expanded reconnaissance before engaging. He prepared for the highest casualties in Crithian military history. On Earth, people went back to their preparations. The surrender offer had been made and rejected. There would be no more negotiations. Only battle. Humanity had 6 weeks left. They spent it working, building, preparing, and accepting what was coming. The galaxy watched and waited. The Crithian Dominion, for the first time in 3,000 years, approached a conquest with caution rather than certainty. And humanity, marked as Target 848, prepared to teach the universe a lesson about the cost of trying to extinguish a species that refused to quietly die. The fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune. Then Uranus. Then Saturn. Each passing day brought them closer to Earth and gave humanity one more day to prepare. The Galactic Assembly monitored the situation continuously. Some species sent messages of support to Earth, knowing those messages would arrive too late to matter but sending them anyway. Others prepared to observe the battle, documenting what would likely be humanity's final stand. Ambassador Quelix recorded a personal message to whoever might survive to hear it. Let it be known that humanity faced extinction with courage. They were offered survival through surrender and chose death through resistance. They were outmatched and knew it, yet fought anyway. Whatever the outcome of this battle, let the galaxy remember that at least one species chose dignity over survival. Let their example inspire others who face impossible choices. And let the Crithian Dominion remember that conquest is never free, and some prey refuses to be consumed quietly. The fleet reached Jupiter's orbit. Earth's defensive weapons activated, their targeting systems locked on the approaching enemy. Humanity's soldiers checked their equipment one final time. Scientists ran final diagnostics on experimental weapons. Children said goodbye to parents who were stationed on orbital platforms. Old people stood on hillsides watching the sky, knowing they would not live to see the outcome but determined to witness the beginning. The countdown reached 0. The Crithian fleet hesitated at the edge of Mars' orbit, running final reconnaissance, revising tactics, calculating costs. They would attack eventually. Victory was still certain, but for the first time in 3,000 years, the Crithian Dominion was afraid of what victory would cost. And across the galaxy, 847 conquered species watched and learned, and began to hope that perhaps the age of unquestioned Dominion supremacy was ending. Humanity waited, weapons ready, resolve absolute, prepared to show the universe that some species would rather burn than kneel.